Is ignorance bliss? Well, I'm not sure about that, but it can be expensive. That's this week on Motoring 2001.
TSN's Motoring 2001 is brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oils, formulated for the vehicles you drive and the way you drive them. And Midas. Keep a good thing going. Go Midas.
You know the old adage, you can only count on two things in life, death and taxes? Well, I think it's safe to add traffic congestion to that list. And you know, I don't care where you live, let's face it, getting from point A to point B has never been more frustrating, and people are asking, where have all the vehicles come from? Well, that's a simple answer when you consider that close to 60 million cars and trucks are built on this planet each year. But you know, that's not the problem. The problem is traffic flow. People hogging the left lane, not signaling, yapping on the cell phone, and so on. The question is, are the police doing anything about it? Well, there was a day when traffic enforcement simply meant setting up a radar trap. Well, at least one police force is convinced that the times are about to change.
Times certainly have changed. Whenever we're doing any of our enforcement campaigns, people always say, why aren't you out there getting the speeder, or why aren't you getting out there and getting the real criminals? But it's a multifaceted approach today. We're looking after speeders, we're looking after those people in the left lane, we're looking after aggressive drivers. What we want to do is really affect a change in the mindset of motorists on Ontario highways today. Well, I think what we need to do is just go beyond the police saying we need to get aggressive drivers. What I really try and do is break down what that actually means. What are the offenses that are the most egregious out there that we need to focus on? And the ones for us today that are causing a real impact in terms of an inability to get people where they want to go are the people who are following too close, those real high milers, those people who are in and out of traffic, and the ones who are just distracted, not looking at what they're supposed to be doing.
Well, basically, there's a guy up ahead here talking on the cell phone. He's following pretty close to the car in front of him, and he's continuously braking, and now he just changed lanes without signaling. And there's another lane change where he just cut off the transport, so this guy will definitely be spoken to. The reason I stopped you, sir, is because you were talking on your cell phone, and as well, while you were doing that, you made 3 lane changes without signaling. So I'm going to write him up a ticket here for an unsafe lane change, which caused the transport to slam on his brakes, which could cause a chain reaction behind the transport. See, this car is obviously unaware that I'm in a police cruiser. I was going 120, and it just blew past me. And it just did a lane change without signaling as well. And another one. Stopping now. Obviously the signal is working because she put it on to get over to the shoulder, so she doesn't have that excuse.
You ever get nervous about approaching a car?
Yeah, sometimes. More so at night. In the daytime there's a lot of light, so I can generally see what's in their hands, what's in the front seat, but at night it's a little more difficult, so a little more nervous. Upon stopping her, I realized that her license has been under suspension since 1998, and she was fully aware of her suspension. However, for some reason, she just did not bother to get her license back, and as a result, she was charged with 3 different offenses. It's good to get her off the road.
There's a lot of things going on in the roadway that really need to be addressed, and for us there's two in particular that are of major interest to us. And one are the distracted drivers. We now have our Operation Distraction in full effect, and the other is those left lane drivers, those people who are going too slowly in the left lane, or those people who fail to move to the right for those people who just want to overtake.
He could see me behind him, but he still isn't getting over. Going about 110 or so, and this is the passing lane, so he sees that I want to pass him. I'll just pull him over up here and have a talk with him. In a circumstance like this, sometimes a warning is more effective than a ticket. Come on. Well, this guy blew past me going about 130, the driver, and he's not wearing his seatbelt. He's swerving in and out of traffic to keep up his pace. Oh, he's signaling anyways for his lane changes. That's a good sign. How you doing?
Yeah, so what's the problem?
I'm just stopping you. You didn't have your seatbelt on. Do you have ownership insurance as well for the car? Yeah, there's no excuse for not wearing a seatbelt unless you have a medical condition that doesn't allow you to wear one. Everybody should definitely have it on. I'm generally a good guy. I give my fair share of tickets, but I also give my fair share of warnings. I'm not out there to push the public or anything like that. I'm there to just make sure the traffic is flowing well in this region, and that's basically my job. How you doing, sir?
And now for the weather forecast. Hot and getting hotter. More later on Kenzie's Corner.
Nissan's sales have been soft for a while now, but the winds have changed. They are a-blowing, to coin a phrase. This week on Test Drive, we check out the source of those winds, this all-new Sentra. The Sentra SE tested is differentiated from its lesser siblings by an aggressive look that's enhanced by the addition of the Sport package. The front fascia, integrated fog lamps, a deck-lid spoiler, bolder side sill extensions, alloy rims equipped with 195/55 HR16 tyres speaks to the sportier intentions. Also included in the package are anti-lock brakes that act on discs all round. These haul the light Sentra to a halt in a short 110 feet from 80k. You also get a limited slip front differential. Limiting the amount of slippage between the left and right front wheels does a couple of good things for you. First of all, in wet weather it helps to minimize wheel spin. The second thing it does is to mask the torque steer associated with a large powerful engine and front wheel drive. However, on the Sentra it does have a minor drawback. If you accelerate hard, either to the left or to the right, the steering has a tendency to get very tight. What you have to do is rely on good old Armstrong to get you back on course. Naturally, the sportier SE is imbued with more power. A 2-litre double overhead cam motor that puts 145 horsepower and 136 pounds-feet of torque at the driver's disposal. Under normal conditions, this engine is quiet and refined all the way from idle to redline. Twin tailpipes and a special muffler that reduces back pressure above 2500 RPM reshapes the engine's tone to add a sporty growl. A slick 5-speed manual gearbox is standard issue. The smooth hydraulic clutch and a tight, well-defined shifter gate delivers a rewarding driving experience and fast acceleration. The SE blasts from rest to 100 km an hour in 7.5 seconds. This urgency is due in part to the gearbox's numerically high ratios. While that tall gearing works very well for those from the hard and fast school of driving, out on the highway, well, it's a different kettle of fish. 100 comes at 2,750 RPM. However, crank it up to 120, which is roughly what everybody drives on the highway nowadays, well, and you run up to a busy and buzzy 3,400 RPM. The Sentra is suspended on McPherson struts up front and the same multi-link beam employed in the highly regarded Maxima. This design, a pair of roll bars and the SE's stiffer spring and damping rates brings good road manners and a compliant, comfortable ride. Pushed through the pylons, the Sentra tracks a true line, body roll is minimal, and understeer far enough out that encountering it takes a fairly brave driver. This new Sentra is longer, wider, and perhaps more importantly, taller. That allows somebody that sits fairly tall in the saddle enough headroom in spite of the sunroof. Elsewhere, 8-way manual seat, tilt steering, a great sounding radio, effective climate controls that include air conditioning. However, best of all, titanium face gauges. They really do add to the sporty intentions of this neat little car. In the rear, the environment is comfortable and will accommodate 3 adults as long as they don't object to being friendly. While legroom is plentiful, headroom, in spite of the taller stance, is still on the shy side of right. After that, the 329-litre trunk is nicely squared off and benefits from 60-40 split folding seatbacks. A bolder body, significantly better power, and the expanded dimensions transform the Sentra into a real contender, especially if you go with the SE and all the good things it brings. If you happen to be in the market for something that's both sporty and practical, this car's well worth a test drive.
Our Midas tip of the week concerns washing your vehicle. I know my vehicle runs better when it's clean, and I'm sure yours will too. Here's a few tips that you can use when washing your vehicle. First of all, always wash in the shade, and there's a couple of reasons. A friend of mine who owned a body shop once told me that hitting a vehicle that's been sitting out in direct sunlight, hitting it with cold water wasn't a good idea. It's just too much of a shock to the finish, and it can cause fine cracks in the finish, especially on a repainted car. He used the analogy of you or I sitting out in the hot sun and getting sprayed with cold water. A few other pieces of advice as well. I always keep my old wash mitt, like this tattered one, for washing the lower extremities of the car. Use your new mitt at the top, and the old chewed up one for the lower extremities where you get a lot of extra grit and dirt into the mitt, and some grease and oil that gets thrown up from the wheels as well. That'll help. Use a professional grade car wash soap like these ones right here. These ones dry spot free, just as their name implies, and I've tried them. They work really well, and it saves you one lengthy step of chamoising the car dry. These dry totally spot free. And if you use household detergents, that's a no-no. They'll strip the finish of your car. Spend a few extra bucks and get the proper car wash soap. Also, a soft brush like this on a broom handle will help you wash the upper extremities of a pickup or sport utility where you just can't reach them. Now, one other thing, remember, even if the vehicle doesn't look all that dirty, one major component of air pollution is sulfur dioxide. As sulfur dioxide settles out of the atmosphere onto the surface of your vehicle, apparently, once that's wetted, it forms a dilute solution of sulfuric acid. Sulfuric acid is what they use in car batteries, and you don't want it on the finish of your car, even in a dilute form. So washing the vehicle on a regular basis will get those pollutants off the finish and save the finish of your car. Keep it looking good for years and years. That's your Midas tip of the week.
You have assistance? Yeah, if you want, I don't know how long they'll take, but I can get you a tow truck here right now if you want. Okay, okay. She basically got cut off. She was driving along and a car went to change lanes in front of her and caused her to swerve out of the way, and as a result she lost control and spun out here in the ditch. You can see her tire marks coming from lane looks like 2 or 3 right into the ditch. So this just happened right behind us, and you know, if we were 100 feet behind us, we would have got hit definitely out here. So we're very lucky. And she's lucky that she's not injured.
Well, the OPP custom garage has been at work, and we're not out there in the usual sort of police type car, and the traditional unmarked police car kind of looks like a policeman in a cheap suit. You see the the little antenna farm in the trunk and the big lights in the window. What we have now is the new Impala. There's spoilers on them, tinted windows, there's no antennas, and all the emergency lights, siren equipment, all that stuff has been hidden until it's activated. And these vehicles are specifically targeting the aggressive drivers and the distracted drivers and just plain bad drivers.
Well, now that it's been customized, at least you can say the Impala has a purpose in life. I know I'm not alone in saying that when this new version was introduced at the Detroit Auto Show a few years ago, there were a lot of disappointed people. Let's face it, this new car doesn't hold a candle to its predecessor, the Impala SS. All right, let's head to the garage and join Bill Gardiner.
Well, Brad, we've got an email from a viewer this week, and he wants to customize his vehicle. He's got a 2001 Honda CR-V. He says, I bought a set of window visors for the vehicle. I'm having trouble installing them. The rubber part of the door is messing me up. I'm not sure what to do, whether to stick it to the rubber or cut the rubber and then stick it. What should I do? Well, first of all, he doesn't mention where he bought this particular accessory, and I think one thing that's very important with accessories, you should always try and buy them from the vehicle manufacturer. And that's something that I would suggest our viewer investigate, because if you buy them from the vehicle manufacturer, they're higher quality, they fit better, and in most cases you won't have to compromise the vehicle to install them. And believe me, he's going to be compromising his vehicle if he cuts that rubber molding around the door. Now, this is the kind of a window visor that he's talking about right here. And when I bought this used pickup truck, it had these very ones on it. An hour and a half after I bought it, I tore them off. And as soon as I tore them off and washed the dirt that was trapped in behind it away, I found all kinds of dents all along the perimeter of this flange where it sticks to the door. And they stick these things on with double-sided tape. So the installer tore off the double-sided tape, held it up there, and took a ball-peen hammer and smacked the thing along the flange to install it, and left all these little hammer dents all the way along where this flange went. I could just choke the guy for doing that. I'll tell you another thing this vehicle came with was running boards. I never did like the look of them, but I've got to admit they performed a pretty worthwhile function, in that with 330,000 kilometers on the vehicle, there's virtually no stone chips on the bottom of the door and the rocker panel. I didn't like the look though, so what I did was I took these off and replaced them with molded mud flaps that I got from the GM dealer. They fit perfectly, they go around this molding, as you can see, fit the body contour perfectly, and they're nice and rigid as well. They look pretty good on there, and they'll perform the same function as the running boards did by protecting the bottom of the door. $21.50 for a pair of them from GM, and they fit perfectly. Now, another thing that people are often customizing on their vehicles, and kind of ties in with Brad's story about the customized police car, is taillight lenses. And I don't understand why the police aren't pulling some of these guys over for taillight lenses that I see every day on vehicles. That's the lens that I'm talking about. Is you've probably seen guys that have removed their taillight lens and put on a clear or white colored taillight lens, and in many cases they don't show red at all in that taillight lens, or they've put a cover over with some kind of a logo or emblem that almost completely obliterates the taillight except for where that little logo is. And when I read the Highway Traffic Act, or HTA, it certainly seems to me that those things are clearly in contravention. Another thing is dark tinting of the side windows. If you can't make eye contact with the driver, that's a safety situation, and I think the police should be starting to enforce that a little bit more vigorously. But you know something, I must be getting old, because I keep thinking about my dad. My first couple of motorcycles, every winter I'd have him down in the basement customizing the heck out of them. He'd walk down there, shake his head and go, "What are you doing? Don't touch it, leave it alone, you're gonna wreck it." I wouldn't listen to him. I had to put all this junk on, and half of the stuff, he was right, I compromised it. I did wreck a lot of stuff before I found out, but I wouldn't listen to him, I was young. Anyhow, if anybody would like a used set of window visors for a full-size GM pickup, or those running boards, I'll trade them even for the name and the address of the guy that put those dents in my doors. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardiner for Motoring 2001.
A kid left all alone inside a parked car. Well, that sounds like the plot summary of a bad Macaulay Culkin movie. As if there's such a thing as a good Macaulay Culkin movie. But that can be also a very dangerous situation for children, because in a car in the summertime, the heat inside a car can spike very, very quickly. And because children have much larger body surface to body weight ratios, they absorb the heat more quickly. And because kids don't sweat, and because a baby can't roll the window down, they don't have as many heat rejection technologies available to them. General Motors has determined that at least 120 babies have died as a result of heat stroke because they've been left in parked cars. And it's not just kids either. You come to a shopping mall like this on any summer day, you'll see a little dog in the back seat barking his little head off. It's because he's being baked. GM's even found that if you crack the window by an inch, it doesn't materially affect the temperature inside the car. Now, GM's come up with some technology that they think can prevent this situation from happening. A low-energy radar system built into the headliner of the vehicle can measure something as subtle as an infant's breathing. A temperature sensor determines if the interior temperature is getting to lethal levels, and if that combination exists, the system will honk the car horn 3 times, which is the letter S in Morse code, as in SOS. Now, GM says that they'll have this technology available by the year 2004, but if other car companies can use it more quickly, they'll be happy to make it available to them. Now, you might think that 120 deaths over 5 years, well, that's not much compared to the 40 or 50,000 people we kill on the roads every year in North America. But you think about that Ford Explorer Firestone tire situation. They've had about the same number of deaths, but in twice as long a period of time. So this infant situation is an order of magnitude more serious. And everybody who's heard about the Firestone tire thing, nobody's ever heard about this particular issue. And of course, we're trying to correct that right now. What's more, the people that are dying in those Firestone tire Ford Explorers, most of them aren't wearing their seatbelts. And it's pretty hard to find a more blameless victim than a 6-month-old baby locked in a car seat. Now, folks, you don't have to wait till 2004 to help reduce the situation. When you leave your kid in the car, you're causing a serious situation. Don't do it. I'm Jim Kinsey.
Before we go, we want to thank Constable Randy Smith of the Ontario Provincial Police for letting us hang out with him. It was certainly an eye-opener. You know, rightly or wrongly, I've always felt that maybe the police spend a little too much time focusing in on just the speeders, while other drivers flaunt the rules of the road and in doing so endanger other people. Well, obviously that is changing, not only with the OPP, but with other police forces across the country. Now, will they win the battle? Well, we certainly hope so, although I think the advice my father gave me many, many years ago when I first got my license still rings true today, and that is, watch out for the other guy. That's it for now. We'll see you next time out as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
TSN's Motoring 2001 has been brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oils, formulated for the vehicles you drive and the way you drive them. And Midas. Keep a good thing going. Go Midas.